listening to The Motherhood Experience, a podcast where you are part of the conversation with moms, for moms, and by moms. Let's jump into this episode with me, your host, Val Kleppen. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Motherhood Experience podcast. I'm your host, Val Kleppen. So glad to have you joining me today. Today, I am joined by my friend, Paula, from many moons ago, probably about 16-ish years ago. We were in a young marrieds small group Bible study with her and her husband, Jonathan. They had their baby, Cambry, then, and we became fast friends before they sadly moved away. We had seen each other a couple of times since, and it had been many years, probably a dozen or so years since we had connected last. And it was so great to be able to connect and have her on the podcast and share her journey of motherhood. Before we get into Paula's story, I would just like to remind you to go to themotherhoodexperience.com/learn more. There you can get on the email list and get updates from me about once a month. That's as often as I will enter your email inbox, unless there's something really exciting happening, which, I mean, it's me, so that's not going to be often. And you can follow me on Instagram in the meantime as well, or the new Covert Undercover Facebook page. Otherwise, without further ado, I'm thrilled to be able to get into this motherhood experience story with my friend Paula Geiger. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Motherhood Experience podcast, where I am joined by my long-lost friend, Paula Geiger. Paula, how are you today?
I'm doing well, doing good.
It's so good to see you. It's been many years since we have talked, and you have a lot more children than the last time we talked as well. Why don't you start with ages of kids and stage of motherhood you're in?
Okay, so we have our oldest. We have 7 children. Our oldest is Cambry, and she is almost 17 this next month. Carly is 14. Amara is 12. Noelle is 10. And then we have Boone, who is almost 7. Nora and Winston are twins, and they are going to be 4 in December.
Wow.
So there it is. Yeah.
You and John, how many years have you and John been together?
So it's actually our 20th this year in November.
Oh.
Well, so our 20th anniversary. We dated. I mean, we only dated and were engaged for it was like January we started dating, and by November we got married. So it was pretty quick. But we had known each other prior to that. So it was
okay.
Yeah.
Were you guys pretty young when you got married?
22 or 20. I think it was 22, almost 23.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to think of
young enough.
Yeah.
So when you and John got married, John's like a big outdoors hunting guy. Was family a priority for you guys as well?
Yeah, I mean, we both grew up in we both had strong family lives, if that's how you want to say it, or both grew up in homes that were, healthy homes, I would say. I don't know. Kids were definitely something that we had planned for. I knew I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I didn't even want to go to college because I was like, well, I just want to get married and have kids, but, didn't have anybody to marry at that time, so I had to go through some schooling, and I was glad for that. But yeah, so we always knew that we wanted to have kids. Not necessarily 7, or we never thought we'd have 7, but 3 to 4 maybe.
So did that just happen? Did you change your mind one day about family size?
So our first 4 are girls, and when our 4th was born, Jonathan, I never really ever felt done after her, but yet Jonathan felt like we were done. That 4 was good. And then he had done a Bible study or read a book, and I don't remember what it was. And I don't really remember. Yeah, I don't remember all the details, but he was actually the one that said, I think we should try for one more. And then that's when we had Boone. And Boone is 3 years younger than Noelle. And then the twins were our surprise.
Oh, and so they are fraternal twins?
Yeah.
And so are there twins on either side of your family?
So I have a set of aunts, and Jonathan has a set of cousins. But it was never anything that I never really thought, it just never was anything that crossed my mind that we'd have twins. The funny thing is, So I have a few friends that have twins within the same year, or that were born within the same year. And my one friend, I was watching her twin boys, and the girls, we had just told them that we were expecting that day. And my friend comes and picks up the babies. They were little at that time. And they're like, Mom, wouldn't it be so much fun if it was twins? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I mean, I was like, I think one is good. And I don't know, a couple weeks later when I went in for my ultrasound, sure enough, there were two.
So when you say that they were a surprise, does that mean that not only was it a surprise you were having twins, but that you being pregnant with them was also a surprise? Or you getting
Pregnancy was
pregnant?
a surprise also, which I know some people are like, a surprise, but yes, they were a surprise. And then that, yeah, it was kind of a shock really when I found out that there was two. I think Jonathan wasn't with me. And I mean, it was a 9-week ultrasound, you just go in, and I don't know, I went to most of my appointments by myself, except for like the 20-week ultrasound. And so I'm laying there, and there's two babies. And so, but my girls were so excited, and I mean, they were thrilled about the idea of having twins.
Were your pregnancies, generally speaking and overall, were they pretty easygoing? Did you enjoy being pregnant?
I had good pregnancies. I had really good pregnancies. I was always healthy. I mean, the discomfort towards the end, I mean, I definitely would complain. I'd never loved the weight gain. But no, I had good pregnancies, good deliveries. So it wasn't, yeah. It was just, when you're not expecting, and then you're expecting to maybe, you're not expecting to be, I mean, or the pregnancy itself was a surprise, and then having two, which I always said before that I always thought it'd be fun to be surprised by being pregnant, because we always were able, when we tried, we were able to get pregnant. Yeah.
What is the dynamic like in your home when you have kids in age from 17 to 4?
It's kind of crazy. The first few years, like when the twins were born, our oldest was 13. So everybody was still kind of around, and it was during COVID. They were born December of 2020. So, I mean, it was crazy, but yet then compared to now, now we have a driver. Now we have, a few more in sports. And so all the activities. So trying to keep up with the older ones while yet trying to like get the younger ones to bed, make sure they get their naps, all that stuff. It's interesting, but yet my girls, and I always say my girls, I feel, sometimes I feel like we have two sets of kids, because we had our girls, we refer to them as our girls, and then there's Boone, and then there's the twins.
Yeah.
But they've always been really good at helping. I mean, from the time we brought the twins home, I mean, they would stay up later and hold them while I would take my shower. And because Jonathan would have to be at work early the next morning, so the two oldest ones would stay up and each take a twin. And yeah, I think, I mean, I don't know if we would have, I mean, they helped us through that time so much. And
do you feel like being a mom to your girls and then having a son, did that change at all? Like how you mothered? Were you trying to cater to like the boyness of your son after having 4 girls? What was that like?
So Boone actually, so when he was about, well, 7 months, 8 months, we actually started noticing that he wasn't meeting certain developmental milestones. And so I think it was at his 6th month, his doctor just said, if he's not sitting up by 8 months, let's get an appointment and, let's see him. And for that even, I ran into a gal who used to be a pediatric occupational therapist, and she saw him and she's like, oh, is he like 4 months now? And I was like, no. And I think he was about 7 months at the time. So like he wasn't able to hold his head up for long periods of time. And so then fast forward, we saw a geneticist, and he was diagnosed with a genetic disease syndrome. And so it's got a long name, isodicentric chromosome 15 disorder. And really what it is that for him, it's caused development delays. So cognitive, when he was little, I mean, the speech, still speech, I mean, he's puts together like 5-word sentences. He's got a lot of other words. It's kind of like we're, like a lot of that babbling, but you just can't understand it. And I can't say babbling, but we're at a point where he can put 5 words together that we can understand. Put a sentence together, and everybody's like, oh, Jonathan got his boy. I mean, you have that, automatically we're thinking, okay, he's going to be the hunter. He's going to be the one that's, doing all these things with Jonathan. Because at that time, the girls weren't showing any interest in any of those activities.
Sure.
But it's hard. I mean, but he's all boy. He's busy. He is, is one of those diagnoses where some of the children don't walk. Some of them are nonverbal, and he's all over the place. He's healthy. He's just super active. He has a one-on-one pair at school, so he needs that. But he's done really well. But as far as, it's a little different than what a typical almost 7-year-old boy would be probably doing. So
aside from the developmental side of it, vocabulary, physical growth, are there medications that he needs to take? Does he get sick easily, like immunocompromised, anything like that?
Nothing like that. Epilepsy is really common in these children, or in this genetic disorder, but he hasn't had he's not had one single seizure that we know of so that is probably the biggest thing with these children, or I always say children, and just because he's still, a child, but no, he has been, I would say he's pretty typical as far as health. Maybe an ear infection here and there. No, he's healthy.
I'm very green in this. So forgive me if these questions are like, oh, come on. So genetic disorder, does that mean that both you and John were carriers of this?
So this one is actually not carried. I know somebody just said that, or just asked me about that the other day too. So it's in his chromosomes where he has a duplication at in a certain chromosome. It's like, I'd have to get all of my paperwork out and read through it again to tell you exactly where that depletion is, or the duplication is. But it's within the 15th chromosome, and it was just one of those spontaneous ones. It wasn't a hereditary disorder. So yeah.
So after him, he was diagnosed by the time he was a year old?
He was, just a little over a year when we got the diagnosis.
Okay. So now it starts to make a little more sense why maybe getting pregnant again was a surprise, and then, oh, look, it's 2.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that, it really was, because he, at that time I was taking him into physical therapy and occupational therapy. And then, you're just busy with those kinds of things. And then I think we were still probably doctoring some. And just because when you get a diagnosis like that, there's all these other appointments that they kind of want you, they want you to check the heart, and they want you, there's just all these different things that they want to make sure, okay, he's good in this area, good in this, just kind of check off. And at that time, he was a little over 2.5, I think then, because they're 3 years apart. So it was just, I think, just not knowing what his future was really going to hold, and how involved we would need to be.
Right.
And we still don't know, what his future, I will say, a year ago, I think of like his speech, and a year ago, I think he was putting together 3-word sentences. And so now can easily put together, 5 words where we're understanding. And so he's continuing to make progress, and I don't have any doubt that he will just continue. He's just, and he's social. He's so social. If he saw you, he would, he goes up and he gives people hugs, and he'll even attempt to give you maybe a kiss. And there's a lady at our church who likes his kisses, and so she she makes sure she gets one of those kisses when she sees him. And I'm like, we're trying to avoid this in public, especially, but just some of those social things that even the sitting on laps, and like, rubbing of heads, feeling people's hair. And
so when you were pregnant then, was it in the back of your mind, like, will we have issues to deal with in this as well?
for the babies,
Yeah.
like if they were going to be born with something.
Right.
No, because they told us that it wasn't genetic, or it wasn't, hereditary, I should say. I
Right.
mean, because it's a genetic, but it wasn't hereditary. And I mean, we did get that question a lot, but I don't know. Those were things that I didn't really, I'm not like, I am a worrier in a lot of ways. Like my kids' safety, I tend to worry about, like, don't, be careful, be careful. I tend to be that one.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't. It wasn't something that I was concerned about, I guess. And the pregnancy went well.
So do the twins now, do they play often with each other? Do they play well with Boone? How does that work?
They'll play together. I mean, the twins play together. I mean, they kind of, one of the things that was like helping me along when I found out I was expecting twins, I was like, okay, they'll always have a playmate. There will always be somebody that they can, if I'm like busy doing stuff, or they'll always have somebody else. And they do play really well together, but then they do fight quite a bit pretty easily too. With Boone, from the time he was, so the twins are Nora and Winston is obviously the boy. Boone was always drawn to Winston in the sense that he always, when Winston was a baby and he was just learning to sit up, Boone would go and just on his back, like he'd always, or pop him on the head, or, I mean, this is a common thing. I mean, Boone he's pretty hands-on.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily to get to be mean always. It was more just to get his attention, because he would get Winston's attention. And so for a long time, Winston really, anytime Boone would come around, Winston would just kind of be like, I don't want anything to do with you. And I mean, for a long time, he would just scream when Boone would be around. And then, and then as he got older, now they'll play. Now they get into trouble together, and they'll roughhouse together. So now they have more of that, I don't know, maybe that brotherly. Winston he loves to tackle. He loves to just be all boy. But then he will play babies with, Nora too. So
yeah. What is the, having 9 people in your family is impressive for one. But like how do you manage laundry and dishes and household chores and everything that 9 people create?
Yeah. Well, you come to my house unexpectedly, and my house is usually, I mean, it's a mess. If I have a play date, I feel bad because my friends come over and I have my house all clean, and I'm like, that's just, I like to have, I mean, it's kind of like my way to like, okay, I'm going to finally get it cleaned up. It's going to be, I like a clean space when I have people come, but no, on a day to day, I mean, there's toys everywhere. There's dishes out. I mean, the girls they all wash and dry and fold, put away their own laundry. They're kind of in charge of their own clothes. I mean, if during the day I'm working on the rest of ours and theirs is in there and I have, extra time, I might fold a little bit of theirs, but otherwise I pretty much just put their basket in the room and they take care of it later. Yeah.
Is your washer and dryer running every day?
Yeah, but it could probably be running more. Sometimes, I mean, the piles. I mean, you just get piles, and some days I get a lot done, and some days it just piles up. But it does pile up pretty quick.
Yeah, I can imagine. And what about groceries and mealtime and?
That's something that I feel like I don't know who I was talking to, but I feel like I'm still trying to figure out meals since the twins. I remember the first 2 years for sure, if not a little longer, it was like, okay, I get the main part of the meal figured out, and then I'd be like, okay, I guess we're throwing in the tater tots in the oven, or, I mean, everything was kind of, like the sides, even like the vegetables and the fruits were always kind of like an afterthought. I don't know. I'm not nearly as organized as maybe you would think a mother of 7 should or would be, but I feel like I'm constantly at the grocery store. And
yeah, I'm still hung up on that. You have play dates, and so I mean, let alone people coming to your house, which that's a big feat, I feel like. But how do you guys go anywhere? I mean, I know that there's enough of an age difference now where not everybody has to go to the same place at the same time, probably. But how do you manage getting across town?
Well, I would say actually we do a lot still as a family. Even our older girls will come with, our oldest now. I mean, since she's had a job this last year, started last, I don't know, maybe last spring. And so with that, she's not with us as much, but we have a big 12 passenger van. So we load up in there.
Okay.
But I don't know, our girls have just we've always just done stuff together as a family. And so even now, you just load up and you just do it. I will say I am, because of with Boone at the stage that he's at, I find it easier for people to come to my house because not always, but if I have time to, I don't know, like some of our like close friends that we'll get together with, sometimes it is still easier for them to come to us
Mm-hmm.
because he's so busy and just he doesn't have the boundaries. And so if we're going to somebody else's house, I don't know, it's just that constant, like, what is he getting into? Are they okay with this? I mean, we have some friends that I just, we've got where I'm like, okay, I know that they're okay with us coming, where they know Boone. So they just kind of expect that it's just going to be busy with him there. But when you don't know somebody, or if you don't know them as well, it is really hard to, I'm probably going way into this more than I need. I don't know. But no, we really do try. Like we have our oldest and then our third are both doing cross country this year. Our oldest is done. This is her 4th or 5th year. And we go to the cross country meets. Volleyball, our second is doing this year. And we go to the volleyball games. We try to still go out and do as much as we can because I need to do it. And just for I don't know, for our older ones too, to be able to do the activities they're a part of. And so, I don't know, we just do it.
Yeah. Do you guys do like family game nights? Are you more movie people? Like what kind of
Um,
activities do you do at home?
those things are harder to do. Again, I'd love to say that we put the little ones to bed and we stay up and watch movies with the younger or the older ones, but I fall asleep as soon as the movie starts. And I mean, my kids kind of know that. And it's really hard to find movies that are age appropriate for a 17, almost 17-year-old down to like our 10-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you are like, I don't know that in games, unless the younger ones are in bed, they're hard.
Yeah.
We used to do, I don't know, I feel like we used to do more things, but yet we still do quite a bit. It's just different. And I think just in general, anytime your kids are getting older, things change.
Yeah.
So,
Do you feel like you are more of like a hands-on interactive memory making mom? Like are you into the crafts and the party things and the Pinterest stuff, or are you more of like a sentimental teachable moment?
so with our older four, I was a lot more, I would say I'm still hands on with my younger ones, but I would say I was better about being hands on, or like we did a lot. In the summertime, we spent many days at the lake. I mean, that was just kind of our thing. Jonathan would be at work and I'd take the girls and we'd go to the lake. So more memory making, not so much, but we do like, I would bake, and all my girls, I mean, they're all good in the kitchen. I mean, they don't really do so much meals. If I ask them to do it, they will, but they probably for the most part prefer the baking. I would say more memory making, like, yeah, just going places, simple things. Like so just 2 years ago, we moved out to the country. And so we were in town prior to that, and we did a lot of walks. That was something that actually, as a family, we used to do a lot of, is a lot of walks. Now again, I mean, just the age span, and it's challenging because, like, well, the younger ones, I don't know, they're at this age where they can walk, but sometimes it's nice to put them in a stroller. But then Boone is not quite, he can't do a bike, and so for him to come along, so we're still figuring out that, like, we don't
Right.
do biking because he can't ride a bike and he's getting too big
Right.
or we don't have 2 trailers so to pull behind.
I can just imagine in a neighborhood, like looking out the window and being like, what are all these people doing coming down our street? And then, oh, it's the Geiger family.
They would know us. They knew us as the family, or me as the mom that was always out walking with the stroller. And they definitely, yeah. It's funny though, because we would see like a family of, with 4 kids. We'd be like, wow, that's a big family. And then you'd be like, okay, add a couple more on, and yeah, that's us.
Yeah. That's impressive.
Well, I would say there are
Oh,
a lot of other large families in the area. So we really aren't. We're in a community with a lot of large families.
okay. And I was actually going to ask and wonder that too. And even in regard to like with your siblings and Jonathan's siblings, do you guys have the most kids of people in your family?
Yes. But we all, like Jonathan's one brother has 5, and then his sister has 4, and then his other brother has 3. And then both of my sisters have 4. So not small families.
Right.
Good size. We have lots of cousins to play with.
Yeah. And I know that you and your sisters, at least I think I know,
Yeah.
you and your sisters were pretty close.
Yeah.
Do you feel like your kids are close like that as well?
So my one sister is out in Boise, and so it's hard to, just that distance. We see each other maybe, we saw them this last summer, and it had been about 2 years before that. So it's hard to keep, those cousins close. My sister that lives closer by, her oldest, and yes, her kids and our kids are much closer. And Jonathan's side of the family, they all get along really well.
Yeah.
So it's fun to get together.
Do you think that your 4 older girls especially will be close like you were close with your sisters?
I think so. We have our 2, they kind of, like our 2 oldest, they kind of pair up, but our 2 oldest are really close. The other 2 aren't maybe as close as the older 2, but yet there'll be times where, I don't know, you see them, they still get along, but they maybe not as close as the older 2. The older 2 from day one, from the time they were little, just always got along. They just hardly fought. And then the other 2 they can butt heads a little bit more, but yet they can hang out too. And I do think as you get older, like for my sisters and I, it wasn't until high school that we really got close. And I don't know if that was, I can't remember what the distance or age distance between you and your sister. If you, like, how close are you?
3 years.
Was there an age where you guys hit too?
16.
Okay.
When I turned 16 is when we became BFFs.
And is she older?
She's younger.
She's younger. Okay.
She was a little turd until I turned 16.
Yes, there's some but yes. But I do think, like, there's something about that high school age, or just when you're, I don't know. I think of it as the high school age, and I think you just feel a little bit more somewhat at the same stage.
I think you're onto something there. And maybe it becomes more about relationship at that point than about like belongings or I'm not touching you kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So did you, with 6 pregnancies and 7 children, did you have any pregnancy losses in that time?
We did not.
Mm-mm. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I had no C-sections. I always think of that too, like no C-sections, all natural births. The twins were early, but other than that, and with being twins, I guess but even them, they were born at 33 weeks, and we spent 3 weeks in the NICU, but it was really just for them to gain weight, get, to learn their, figure out the feedings. And I think they had to reach that 35 weeks. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were like literally built to be a mom.
I don't know what to say, but yeah, pretty.
just say thank you and take it.
Thank you. Yeah.
So what about 17 to 4? It kind of feels to me, or I guess I shouldn't say it kind of feels to me, but I would expect that mentally you have to shift gears in your parenting to meet the needs of the different age groups. Is that accurate?
It's, yeah. And of course, this is something that's come up again recently. So our oldest is a junior, and so now she's taking PSEO classes, and they just had a college fair earlier this week, and I was able to go in and join her for this college fair just to walk around to the different booths. But I will say Jonathan is, I'm really thankful for him and for the relationship that he has with our girls, with all of our kids. And I always say girls because at this stage, just like with the youngest two, the twins tend to want me for everything. And so like bedtime lately, he helps get Boo into bed oftentimes, and I'm with the twins. And that bedtime routine takes longer than I would like it to take some days. And so he sits, that's kind of their time to just to visit and so I don't know. I'm thankful for that, because otherwise it'd be really hard. If I didn't have a husband that, yeah. He's involved. He's very involved.
As their mom, and maybe especially with this age range span, or maybe that has nothing to do with it. Like, what is most important to you to impart to your kids?
Well, obviously for us, their faith, and just that they get a biblical foundation, which, I can go into guilt mom mode here and be like, our older ones, we were so good about, sitting down with them and doing, family devotions and praying with them. And like, it doesn't really happen anymore as a family. I just, but the conversations, I'm thankful we're in a church where our associate pastor leads the Sunday morning Sunday school class for the teens or for the high schoolers. And he just really, he wants these students to just be excited about the Bible. And so our girls are coming home, and they're excited to go back and to learn more. And of course, they're at an age too, like they need to have their own quiet time. And I don't know what that looks like, well, for other families with teenagers, but for us, the sitting down, the devotions, quiet times, all together, whatever you want to call it, is just, it hasn't happened with the younger ones. And I sometimes I'm like, is this just an excuse? But it is just the reality of the dynamics of our family. And so, when they come back from either youth group or Sunday mornings and they're asking questions, I guess that's kind of to us, that's a win, I guess. And of course, to know how to have good friendships and how to be a good friend to your friend. And I really, I don't know, I'm thankful that even just the relationships that they have with each other, I'm like, your friends that you make in school now, you may not be friends. I see some, and I know that, some of the friendships will continue on, but I'm like, in general, these friendships more than likely will come to end just naturally, if you move away so just that they maintain that relationship even with each other as sisters. And
right.
And I don't know, I probably talk more about the older ones, but the younger ones are, we're still working on the please and thank
they're
yous.
still in it.
Yeah.
You're working on bedtime
Yes.
and getting food in the mouth and not on the floor. Like,
yeah.
It's a different era. And who knows? Are there things from like your own life experiences that maybe you see your girls coming to or approaching where you're like, this is what my experience was, and I really just want to prepare them so that maybe theirs is different or better or something like that?
I feel like they are way more, they've just made better choices. I don't know. They just seem like they're just, I don't know. I'm just so proud of them and like the choices that they have made, and like just the initiatives that they've made to like, the oldest, I go back to the oldest, and I think it's just, because we're just hitting the stage with her being the oldest, she hits the stage first, but leading FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I'm like, I would have never been bold enough to do anything like that, which I wasn't an athlete anyways. But, to do some of those things, she led with another classmate, see you at the pole Wednesday. I'm like, I would have been too, I don't know, probably embarrassed or, I don't know. Jonathan too is so good about like preparing them, I think, and just kind of talking through, if something's coming up, and just boys, that stuff.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Because I'm kind of, yeah, we're entering into that or dancing around it maybe at this stage in our lives. Haley is 14. Brent and I have already decided who we would like her to marry. And so, but there's like a season for stuff. And I was talking about this with another friend the other day that Brent and I have been married. It'll be 22 years in the spring.
Okay.
And I guarantee you that while we were dating, while we were engaged, probably after we were still first married, that my parents and other adults in my life, and probably in his too, were like, I don't know. I don't know if they are right for each other. I don't know if they should have gotten married. I don't know about those two as a couple. But I feel like every parent, especially at some point, would be like, that person is not good enough for my kid or who I would have picked or whatever. But it'll be 22 years.
Yeah.
And the man and I have been through some stuff.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine life without him or with someone different. So as your girls are approaching this very real age of dating and courting and entering into this stage of young womanhood, is that a wrestle for you and Jonathan? Do you feel pretty confident in the choices that your girls are making?
At this point, we both have, and this is where I guess too, is like a mom, I have been just so proud of them. We're kind of along the lines of like, and we've kind of encouraged them in this, that to wait until after high school to date. And mostly because like, enjoy these high school years doing the sports, the activities, hanging out with your friends, and not feeling the pressure of just dating. And there hasn't been any we haven't, they've been good so far, but there's you have to be careful on here. Like, what do I share, what do I not? This is my girls. But I think they've seen dating relationships in high school. And I'm not saying that I'm against high school dating, it's not like
I'll say it.
But it's when you really think about it as a parent and you think back to those relationships are just so meaningless. Unless, we want our girls to when you start dating, we want you to date to prepare for marriage. This is we'll see. We've got a long ways to go yet. We're just getting there. But I do feel like the choices they've made so far is they kind of, so far they agree with us. Oh yeah, we'll wait. But that one special boy might come along and then that may change their mind. And that's okay. You have to kind of go with it when it comes. And, but yeah, for now we're like, just enjoy these friendship, enjoy these guys and the girls and just being together in groups. Yeah.
Yeah. This keeps popping up for me to circle back and ask you. You had mentioned when Boone was born that the girls weren't really interested in the outdoor, hunting, fishing things with Jonathan. Has that changed at all?
They all will go out with him now.
To spend time with him or because they enjoy it?
Well, I shouldn't say they all. Our 10-year-old hasn't. She's not interested in the gun safety or the going out. But the older two can now go out. They'll go together. They'll go and sit together. I would say Carly, our 14-year-old, and then maybe Amara, our 12-year-old, probably enjoy it the most. Just the other night, Jonathan, he does bow hunting, so he just went out on Sunday night, and Carly went and sat with him to see, I think just the excitement of if there's a deer out there. And so I think a little bit of both, spent some time with him, and then they like to shoot.
Yeah.
And they've not done a lot of it. We have, we have some land, not a lot, but, and that's kind of helped to just get them out. The youth hunt is fun for them to be able to go out.
Yeah. I love personally, I think we figured out that you moved away from us 15 years ago before that, when we were in small group together and everything, he was just an avid hunter, avid outdoorsman, and sounds like he still is. And I love that all these years later and the places that you've gone, the family has grown, all of this, that he still is able to get out there and
go. Well, and he has actually, this year he won't be going, but typically every other year, and there's been a few years where he's gone a couple years in a row, he will actually go hunting with his brother. And sometimes both brothers have gone, sometimes the brother-in-law has gone, but we have some nephews that go. And so when they go out to Idaho has been kind of where they've gone. Oh, my brother-in-law from Boise will meet them. And then, so like my sister's husband, and then it'll be his brother and his nephews. But anyways, so he's had some nephews to hunt with, and he's really enjoyed that. I mean, his brother and his nephews. So our girls aren't quite to that point. Our oldest has talked about just going and maybe doing the camping portion of it and just the hiking. Maybe not the full-on hunting, but just to be outdoors. So yeah, he has continued even, just hunting around here, but then hunting. It's important for him. I mean, that's like his time of year where he does go. And
have you ever been into that, or are you just supportive of him doing that?
I'm just supportive. I didn't grow up in a family that hunted. My dad didn't hunt. I mean, he grew up with multiple brothers that all did, but my dad just never really. My dad's a little bit more squeamish. So like when it comes to like the cleaning of it, and he loves to hear the stories. He loves to, And I grew up with sisters, and we lived in town, and we didn't have any land. So,
Well, and what a testament to you in supporting him in that also, rather than just because you're not into it, like trying to make him less into it.
Yeah.
You're just supporting him in that. I love that so much. Paula, what would you say that you do or practice to kind of encourage yourself, psych yourself up for when you're having those challenging, difficult days as a mom?
One thing that has been, I would say this morning was one of those, and I sent out a text. I have a group of friends that when we first moved to town here, I almost immediately got in with this group of friends, and it was through the moms group here in town. And kind of like a MOPS, only it just wasn't MOPS at the time. And that core group of friends, we've had 3 or 4 move away, maybe 3. But sometimes I just have to send that text. And for me, that's the biggest. I'm a talker, and like I'm quiet, but yet I'm a talker. For me, I need to be around people and to have that support of my, other friends and ladies that know me, and just, so yeah, they all sent me back these wonderful messages, and that made me even more, emotional because I don't know, you just have those days, but I'm thankful for that. I mean, that is kind of having a support of wonderful lady friends.
Yeah. I think it has been a recurring theme in the podcast too, that community and finding that support of other moms who can,
it's huge,
kind of swoop in and lift you up when you need it is so key. When some of them moved away, did you cry in their driveway?
I didn't. Maybe, but I feel guilty. Like maybe I should have.
No, because I remember. So for the listeners, that's what Val did when Paula and Jonathan moved away, and we loaded up the U-Haul or the trailer, whatever it was, and then stood in a circle at the end of the driveway, and I just felt compelled to pray, but I could hardly choke it out because I was crying, and we were driving away, and I'm like, they're going to think, like, what was Val's deal? Like, we're the ones moving, and she's just falling apart in our driveway. But
no,
I felt like we had found our people. We were getting so close to you, and then you up and left.
Yeah, it was a really fun, I don't know, it was a fun group. And I think of it now, and I'm like, it doesn't feel like that long ago, but yet I'm like, we all have, I mean, it would be fun to get together now and to put all the families together and see all the kids and and just where everybody's at.
Yeah. The most challenging part of that for me would be remembering who all was in the group, because that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, and you probably had some others in that group after we left too.
Right.
Like where you had others in that, that joined.
Well, I am so tickled and pleased. So what happened after I reached out to you on Facebook, I mean, it was within a couple of weeks, I think, that Facebook shut me down and locked me out and considered me a terrible, dangerous individual. And they will not let me back on, not with a fake account, not with a genuine account, not with anything. But I'm so glad before that happened, we were able to connect and start talking through email, because otherwise this might not have happened.
No. Well, and I have to laugh. I don't know if I actually said this. Like when you, with your name that you put on there, your last name.
Yeah.
I was like,
Cognito.
I'm like, I'm like trying to like tell other people about it. I'm like, isn't that funny? Like, isn't that funny? Like incognito, like cognito. But I will say, like, my mind right away, I was like, oh, well, yeah, Val Kleppen, but that's not, like, it took me a while to process cognito.
Did she get remarried?
Yes, that's right. And it's like, I know my heart just kind of sunk for a little bit. And then I mean, it was like seconds. I'm like, oh, it's cognito. Like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to be cute. And that's exactly what got me kicked off and banned forever. So here we are. But anyway, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And just what would you say to encourage other moms who kind of find themselves in this in-between phase, maybe with an age span of kids and entering into the next stage of their motherhood?
You know, I kind of, and I know this has been said before, but I do kind of go back to finding a group of women. And I've said this from the time Cambry was little, of other women that you can gather with. And women that are going to uplift you. I would say that's kind of been my thing throughout. And as the kids have gotten older, it's harder to gather with other women. But I would say that when I can, it helps tremendously.
Yeah, I agree. And I would just say to the moms listening, don't underestimate the power that you have to encourage other moms in your own circle. Like, you matter so much to another mom right now. Don't underestimate that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have to say I love this podcast because, you know, it's, I don't know, like even me, I'm like, oh, I don't know, this interview, this visiting, I'm like, I'm ready to like be having this conversation back and forth. And I'm like, oh, I don't even know how I answer that, but I just love that it's, you know, every mom wants to share their motherhood experience. I mean, every mom wants to share about their children, and so like, big or little happenings in motherhood, I mean, it's still important. And so, yeah, thanks for letting me.
Well, absolutely. And thank you for plugging it. And yes, if you would like to share your story, email me at info@themotherhoodexperience.com and we'll get you on here. If you are a mom and can talk, let's make it happen. Paula, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Motherhood Experience podcast. To join our exclusive TME community, head over to themotherhoodexperience.com/learn more. Be sure to follow The Motherhood Experience on Instagram and please leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment below and we'll catch you next time.